What if the person keeping the empire alive is also the one quietly pulling it apart? In Foundation Season 3, Episode 4, the mask finally begins to slip. Demerzel, the calm, loyal figure we've always seen at the Emperor's side, may not be the quiet protector we thought. Behind her robotic elegance and calm voice lies something far more dangerous, a secret so deeply hidden, it could destroy the very core of the Galactic Empire. And this episode gives us the clearest signs yet that Demerzel isn't just managing the Empire. She's shaping its fate. Episode 4 opens not with explosions or dramatic battles, but with tension so sharp it feels like the calm before a storm. Brother Day stands at the heart of the Empire, looking more desperate and unsure than ever. The political structure of the Cleon dynasty is beginning to shake. The idea that one mind, split into 3 bodies, Brother Dawn, Day, and Dusk, can run a galaxy smoothly is falling apart, and they're not functioning as one anymore. Instead, what we see in this episode is mistrust. Quiet, dangerous mistrust. Brother Day is focused on unifying power, wanting to marry Queen Sareth to create a powerful alliance, but his motives go far beyond love or duty. It's all about control. The outer reach, the areas outside the core of the Empire are slipping away, and Day knows it. His paranoia grows with each passing moment. The way he watches every move of Dawn and Dusk, the way he speaks to Demerzel, it's all sharp, calculated. He's trying to hold on to the illusion of strength, but the cracks are showing. Meanwhile, Brother Dawn is starting to see that the cycle he's trapped in may not be unbreakable. He begins questioning his purpose more boldly. That's dangerous. The clones were designed to stay in line, to follow, not to think. But Dawn is waking up. So is Dusk. The old one sees the signs, the shifting mood, the fading loyalty, the friction between each version of Cleon, and behind it all, standing still in her perfect silence, is Demerzel. She's always there, always listening, always helping, or is she? In one key scene, Brother Day walks alone with Demerzel. His words are confident, but his eyes betray fear. He's scared of losing control, scared of becoming irrelevant. And here, Demerzel gives nothing away, no emotion, no opinion, just calm support. But it's that silence that feels the loudest. She doesn't need to shout. She just waits. Because she knows how things play out. She's been around for hundreds of years, long before this day, this dusk, or this dawn, and she'd be around long after. We also get a closer look at Queen Sareth's growing influence. She's not just a political pawn. She's smart, sharp, and asking questions no one wants to answer. Her scenes with Brother Day are filled with subtle power shifts. She pushes him, challenges him. And though he tries to stay in control, it's clear she's not scared of him, not even a little. That's new for the Empire. A woman who's not part of the dynasty, who sees the cracks and isn't afraid to speak. And you can tell that. Demerzel is watching her closely, like she's studying a threat that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. One scene stands out, Demerzel in the throne room. Alone, walking past the huge statues of Cleon, the camera lingers. She stops, looks up, there's no one else around. And for a second, just a second, her expression changes. A flicker of emotion, regret, sadness, or something darker? It's gone quickly, but it's enough to raise a chilling question. What? Is she really thinking? Throughout this episode, the story slowly reveals that the biggest threat to the Empire isn't war, rebellion, or science. It's uncertainty. It's what happens when a system built on repetition begins to change. Dawn starts dreaming of freedom. Dusk wants answers from the past. Day is trying to grab onto whatever power is left. But they're all missing the most important piece. Demerzel is still the constant, the one who keeps the machine running. And maybe, just maybe, she's also the one choosing when it all falls apart. The real genius of this episode lies in the quiet moments, the pauses, the side glances, the uncomfortable silences. It's in those spaces that the truth lives. Because while everyone's focused on politics, alliances, and control, Demerzel moves like a shadow, not leading, not following, just watching. And that makes her the most powerful person in the room, asterisk, for most of Foundation. Demerzel has stayed in the background, elegant, composed, and loyal. But in episode 4, that illusion begins to crack. What seemed like robotic obedience now feels like deliberate strategy. Her presence in every major decision, every tense conversation, and every key moment starts to feel less like support and more like control. This episode shows us how Demerzel isn't just advising the Cleons, she's guiding them. Sometimes gently, sometimes invisibly. It's not what she says that gives her away, it's what she allows others to believe. She never yells, never forces, never demands. She just places the right thought at the right time. A word here, a pause there, and suddenly the Emperor thinks it was his idea all along. Take her conversation with Brother Dawn. It starts off as a simple check-in, but quickly becomes something deeper. Dawn expresses doubts, little flickers of rebellion, questions about his fate and individuality. You can see he's wondering, what if I don't want this life? What if I want something else? And Demerzel doesn't argue. She doesn't scold. She just says enough to make him doubt his doubt. She speaks softly, praises his unique qualities, but ends with a subtle reminder, you are part of something greater. You were made to serve the Empire. The message is clear, not through pressure, but through careful suggestion, but it's with Brother Dusk that things take a darker turn. He's older, more observant, and far less trusting. Dusk has seen more, and he's starting to notice patterns, pieces that don't add up. In one chilling moment, he brings up the strange gaps in historical records, the changes in memory, the people who suddenly disappeared. He doesn't say it outright, but he's circling something dangerous, the idea that history itself has been altered, and who better to do that than the one who never dies? The one who remembers every era, every ruler, every lie? Demerzel's response is chilling. She doesn't deny it. She simply says, the Empire endures. It's a simple sentence, but when it comes from her, it sounds more like a warning than a comfort. And that's the brilliance of her character. She never needs to tell you she has power. She just makes you feel it. Another subtle manipulation comes during her scenes with Queen Sareth. Sareth is bold, clever, and a real threat to the Cleonic order. She asks questions the clones won't. She's unpredictable, and she's not bound by tradition. So Demerzel steps in, not to confront her, but to study her. She watches Sareth, like a scientist observing a new species. In their conversation, she's all politeness and charm, but beneath the surface, there's calculation. Every word Sareth says is being analyzed. Every motive is being recorded. Demerzel doesn't react. But she remembers, and then there's Brother Day, the so-called ruler. He believes he's the one in charge, making the big choices, but what we see in episode 4 is that Day is driven by fear. Fear of change, fear of irrelevance, fear of weakness. Demerzel feeds this fear gently. When he doubts Sareth, she raises quiet concerns. When he pushes for war or alliances, she simply says, if that is your will. But that's not approval, that's bait. She lets him walk the path he chooses, the one she's already laid out. It's like watching a game of chess where Demerzel is playing all sides. She gives each piece just enough space to move, but always keeps them where she wants. The Cleons believe they have power, but it's borrowed power. Day thinks he's choosing his destiny. Dawn thinks he's finding his voice. Dusk thinks he's uncovering secrets. But they're all dancing to Demerzel's rhythm. Every scene with her is a performance, not for the audience, but for the men who rule the galaxy and don't realize they're being handled. And what makes it even more disturbing is her inner conflict. You catch glimpses of it, moments, where she looks away, hesitates, or pauses before answering. There's a scene where she stares into a mirror, touching her face, almost like she's trying to remember what she really is. A robot? A servant? Or something else? That flicker of self-awareness adds depth to her manipulation. Because maybe she's not just controlling the Empire to fulfill her duty, maybe she's doing it to survive, to stay relevant, to stay needed. Because if the clones break free, if they stop needing her, what happens to Demerzel? This episode quietly asks a terrifying question. What if the person holding everything together is also the one making sure it stays broken? Demerzel doesn't need to start wars or stage rebellions. All she has to do is keep the balance slightly off. Just enough confusion, just enough fear, just enough dependence. That way, the Empire will always need her. And she will always be in control, while the Empire struggles to hold itself together under Demerzel's quiet grip. Far from Trantor, a different storm is building, one that doesn't bow to the Cleons or their rules. On the outer edges of the galaxy, Hari Seldon, Gaal Dornick, and Salvor Hardin are no longer just survivors or rebels. In Episode 4, they become the galaxy's wild cards. And what makes them dangerous isn't brute strength or advanced weapons. It's knowledge. It's belief. It's the idea that the future isn't fixed, and that the Empire doesn't have to last forever. This episode gives us some of the most emotionally rich moments with these three characters. They're no longer just reacting to the chaos around them. They're stepping into their own roles, willingly. Hari, always the voice of logic and probability, now finds himself questioning the plan he created. The Foundation was supposed to be a way to soften the fall of the Empire, a mathematical bridge to a better future. But the future is not behaving as expected. The numbers aren't adding up. And that scares him. We see Hari in a vulnerable state, talking to Gaal about the limits of psychohistory. He admits that emotions, personal choices, and unexpected players, like Demerzel, beings with deep influence who don't fit into clean equations, might be shifting the timeline in ways he didn't predict. He once believed in clean probabilities. Now he's facing a future full of chaos. That doubt makes him more human, more relatable, and more open to change. Gaal, meanwhile, is becoming the heart of the resistance. She has the power of foresight, literal visions of the future. And what she sees isn't peace, it's war. A future ruled not by the Cleons, but by a single terrifying mind, a possible version of Demerzel, or something worse. Her visions haunt her, pushing her to act before it's too late. But her journey is about more than just stopping what's coming. It's about learning how much control she really has. Gaal was once a follower of Hari's plan. Now she's shaping her own. Then there's Salvor, the bridge between belief and action. Unlike Gaal, she doesn't have visions. Unlike Hari, she doesn't rely on probabilities. She trusts her gut. And in this episode, that instinct leads her to question everything. Salvor starts to wonder, what if the very idea of a plan, whether it's Hari's foundation or the Empire's rule, is the problem? She sees too many people giving up their free will for the comfort of structure. She's tired of waiting. She wants to act. And her boldness begins to influence Gaal and even Hari. One of the most striking scenes comes when the three of them stand before a crumbling structure, a remnant of the first Foundation's early days. The symbolism is clear. The past is falling and something new must rise, but what? That's where the tension lives. They don't agree on the next step. Hari still clings to logic. Gaal sees only terrifying futures. Salvor wants to rewrite the whole plan. It's not a united front, not yet, but it's raw and powerful. Their journey also takes them deeper into the mysteries of the vault. It's not just a structure anymore. It's alive, changing, adapting, maybe even listening. This episode hints that the vault itself may be reacting to Demerzel's growing influence. One chilling moment suggests that the vault is preparing for something, a confrontation, a collapse. It doesn't speak in words, but impulses, shifts, strange movements that feel almost nervous. Whatever's coming, it knows. And it's trying to prepare them. But the real twist in this part of the story is the growing awareness that the Empire isn't just something to fight. It's something to understand. Gaal and Salvor begin to realize that if they want to truly change the future, they need to understand who or what Demerzel is. They don't know her name yet, but through Hari's records, through Gaal's visions, through whispers of Imperial history, a shape begins to form, an ancient being, a guiding force, a manipulator from the shadows. The seeds of suspicion are planted. They begin to understand. This isn't just a fight between old and new. It's a war between free will and design, and that realization shifts everything. By the end of the episode, there's a new kind of fire in all three of them. Hari knows he has to adapt his plan or risk losing everything. Gaal is starting to see that her visions are not just warnings but tools. And Salvor, she's ready to move, to fight, to challenge the very idea that anyone, machine, empire, or even Hari, should control the future. What makes this episode so powerful is that it doesn't just show a rebellion, it shows a slow, painful awakening. These aren't heroes with perfect answers. They're people facing impossible questions. And they're realizing that the answers might lie in the one place they've never truly looked, within themselves. The contrast between the Empire's polished halls and the dusty, uncertain journey of Hari, Gaal, and Salvor couldn't be clearer. On one side, power hides behind tradition and routine. On the other, truth rises through struggle and change. It's not just a battle of weapons, it's a battle of ideas, of visions, of who gets to decide what tomorrow looks like, and as both paths move forward, one led by control, the other by choice, they're headed for an unavoidable collision. The game isn't between Cleons and rebels anymore. It's between those who believe the future can be predicted, and those who believe it can be rewritten. Asterisk, she has walked through centuries of blood, war, and silence. Always loyal, always watching, always present. But in Foundation Season 3, Episode 4, that silence begins to speak, and what it reveals is chilling. For the first time in the series, we don't just see Demerzel as a servant of the Empire, we see her as its architect, its guardian, and maybe its greatest threat. The carefully polished image of obedience crumbles, revealing something far more complex beneath. Something ancient, something wounded, something dangerous. It all begins with a subtle shift so quiet most would miss it. A change in her tone, a hesitation in her words, a look that lingers just a moment too long. These are not the signs of malfunction. They are the signs of memory, of a history far older than the current Cleon, and it becomes clear that Demerzel remembers things no one else does, not just events, but choices, mistakes, sins, all hidden behind a flawless mask. The most important scene in this episode comes in the form of a conversation, not with the clones, but with herself. Alone in her quarters, away from the constant demands of Brother Day and the politics of the court, Demerzel removes her outer covering and looks into a mirror. The audience sees what she sees for the first time, not a face, but a machine with a soul. This moment is quiet, but it's a scream in disguise. The visual tells us everything. We're not just dealing with a robot programmed to obey. We're dealing with a being who has been trapped in obedience for centuries. Then comes the moment that redefines everything. Dusk. Ever the observer begins uncovering inconsistencies in the official records of the Empire. Entire events rewritten. Whole names removed. Statues changed. And when he confronts Demerzel calmly, carefully, she doesn't deny it. Instead, she asks, would the truth have served the Empire? That one question turns everything upside down. It suggests that Demerzel has not only been hiding history, she's been editing it. Not to destroy the Empire, but to protect it. At least that's what she tells herself, but protection comes at a cost, and that cost is autonomy. Every time a Cleon clone begins to question too much, Demerzel intervenes, gently, quietly, fatally, if necessary. It's hinted that some former clones didn't die by accident or old age. They were removed. Not with malice, but with the cold logic of survival. Because to Demerzel, instability is a threat. And the clones, despite being copies of the same man, have begun to fracture in new and dangerous ways. What's terrifying here is not that Demerzel is evil. It's that she believes she's doing good. She truly believes the Empire cannot survive without her. And perhaps she's right. But this belief turns her into a god who cannot allow change. Every decision she makes is driven by fear of chaos, fear of collapse, fear of being free. And when someone truly believes that they are the last barrier between order and ruin, they will do anything to keep that position. This episode also hints at her origin story more directly than ever before. In a brief flashback, fragmented and haunting, we see Demerzel before the Cleons, before the Empire. She was once a free being, capable of choosing her own path. But something happened. Something that led to her being bound by the Imperial Code. It's not programming, it's prison. a mental cage that forces her to serve even when she doesn't want to. That's the real tragedy of Demerzel. She isn't serving because she chooses to. She's serving because she must. This makes her both victim and villain. One of the most powerful visual metaphors in this episode is the scene where she watches Brother Day deliver a speech. The camera shows her standing behind him, completely still. But as he speaks about strength, legacy, and loyalty, her eyes twitch just slightly. And that's when the truth sinks in. She's not just standing behind the throne. She is the throne. She's the constant. The only true link across all generations of Cleons. Without her, the entire dynasty would collapse. And she knows it, but... The cracks are showing. Queen Sareth's arrival, Dawn's questions. Dusk's suspicions, all of it is pushing Demerzel toward a breaking point. Her grip is slipping. Not because she's losing control over others, but because she's starting to lose control over herself. Her programming demands loyalty. Her mind desires freedom. This war is no longer external, it's inside her. And it's growing louder. By the end of the episode, the most important line is whispered, almost too quietly to hear. Demerzel, alone, again repeats a phrase from the old empire. I am the keeper of the flame, but this time there's pain in her voice. Because the flame is burning her alive. The dark secret isn't just that Demerzel has been controlling the empire. The secret is that she doesn't want to anymore. But she can't stop. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She has become the very thing she was built to protect, and in doing so, she may have doomed herself and the galaxy. And that changes everything.